Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on ASTV. It's On the Ice, Wayne's World Part 1 edition. Joining me as always, Wayne Kosior from beautiful Saskatchewan. Enjoying this wonderful weather, as always. It's tough. Did you watch the game on Sunday, Wayne? And if you did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, what game? Were the Riders and Bombers playing or something? I heard
It was Sunday is now called Winnipeg. I don't know if you realize that. The fact that the Winnipeg Bombers decided to give almost a touchdown of turnovers away and still win, and then the Winnipeg Jets almost put up a touchdown and an extra point against the Leafs. So Winnipeg and the Moose and the Bombers, 6 points out of 6 points. Not too shabby.
Pretty good weekend for you, Manitoba Bison boys.
We'll take it. Doesn't happen often, but looking forward to next Sunday against them Ticats. It could be an interesting game nonetheless. But let's talk about hockey. It's a busy week for the WHL in particular. I mean, you've got tomorrow, you've got the U.S. draft going on, and then you've got the prospects happening on the Thursday. Plus, you've also got top 35 players or so, maybe less, starting to do tryouts for the World Juniors. That'll take place later on in December, of course, into January. So lots going on with the Western Hockey League. And not to mention, you and I are going to talk about this in length here, Wayne, some blockbuster deals that have occurred over the last week or so involving your Prince Albert Raiders, my Winnipeg Ice, and we're going to see some more, I think, aren't we, Wayne?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. As it comes down to this, especially with the draft happening in December, that's a big reason for a lot of these moves happening here now, as some of the sellers are looking to pick up some draft picks going into that draft, as well as some of the contending teams that you mentioned there that are looking to get the couple pieces that'll help they put them over the top and get them the WHL championship and onto the Memorial Cup and stuff. So definitely an exciting time of year. And like I say, a couple big trades happened, and, none bigger than I think of Gooley here getting traded here to Edmonton recently. And that was a heck of a trade. And I mean, what a blockbuster as far as, the pieces that came back. And I mean, Carson Latimer's a Ottawa Senators draft pick, a forward, highly touted, 2003 and 2004, Eric Johnson, defenseman. And both those players, first game they suited up for their Raiders against Regina Pats, picked up an assist each. So made a good first impression. And then in addition to that, a first rounder in this year's draft. So this week, 13th overall, Edmonton's pick gave. So I mean, it's an outstanding draft class this year, so that's going to be a good player for the Raiders there also. And they also previously owned the 14th pick, so good there. And then plus a first rounder in 2023 and a sixth rounder in 2022 and a conditional third rounder in 2025. So quite a haul. And, my assessment of this when I kind of broke it down, I mean, ultimately a trade doesn't happen unless both team wins, right? So it's got to be a fair deal for each other. So obviously Kurt Hill from Edmonton and Curtis Hunt from PA talked about this. And at the end of the day, they're both getting what they want and need. And that's why the deal happened. And, I kind of calculate with Caden Gooley going to the World Juniors, he's probably got, 30 to 40 games left in his WHL career, because he'll turn pro next year. And, the players that Prince Albert picked, I just tried to do some rough estimating. I estimate probably in the range of 600 player games they're getting back over the next few years. And so that's when I look at these trades, I go, a team really wants Caden Gooley when they're going to, get him for 30 to 40 games and give up 600 games of, a number one, a lot of 2 or 3 first round picks type thing and stuff. So great trade. And what did you think of it?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, you said a trade like this doesn't happen unless both sides are happy. And I'll include Caden Gooley as a third side to this, because here's a guy who's going back home. I mean, he's Sherwood Park, Alberta, right close to Edmonton. You want to talk about a back end that is probably, if not the best in Canadian hockey, CHL action right now. They've got 5 guys that any team would drool over to have for a Memorial Cup run. You look at, obviously, what the Winnipeg Ice have done this year in their regular season, only losing 2 games. But second in that spot is Edmonton, 39 points currently. Everett's not too far behind either. Those 3 teams are ranked 1, 2, and 3 in the top 10 rankings of CHL, as much as we love rankings. But like you said, not only does Prince Albert gain blue chippers, first rounders, second rounders already, but the man games is so crucial to a team in rebuilding, because not only will they make it on the Raiders' ice, perhaps these can be chips that could be further traded in a year or two, let's say, where Prince Albert's turn is then to make their run. And we all know that junior hockey has ebbs and flows. Like, unless you have a program that is perennial winners all the time, like we see with the Chicago Storm in the USHL, because they have the assets and they have the recommendations to do that, you rarely see a team always at the top 5 in CHL action. And it's hard to name them, but they'll have 2 years really, really great, and then they'll have 1 year that they're rebuilding, and then they'll come back. And it's always an ebb and flow. And I think the Raiders had the writing on the wall where they just weren't expected to challenge in that top 5, top 10 Memorial Cup run this year. So, hey, let's gather some chips here. And like you said, close to 600 games.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm not going to speak for the Raiders, but certainly, what I've read in the press and stuff like that, I mean, Curtis Hunt's not thrown in the towel, and that organization never would. But, I think it would be a stretch to think they're going to contend. But, I think their objective every year, just like a lot of teams, is make the playoffs. If you can make the playoffs, who knows what happens then if you get a hot goalie, a hot team type thing and stuff like that. But I absolutely agree with you, Theo. The whole junior hockey league cycle is it basically, I mean, you contend and then you rarely can just you have to take a couple of years where you're really restocking the cupboards and growing some new young talent. And that's just ultimately the way it is. And you'll see the teams that do that wisely seem to be always there every couple of years. And, we can both probably name the teams and come up with the exact same list, right?
Absolutely. So we mentioned Everett. We mentioned the Edmonton Oil Kings. The Winnipeg Ice make a trade as well with the Spokane Chiefs of all teams, picking up one of their, I wouldn't say their top elite goal-scoring forward, but more of, that second liner grinder, straight up the middle, 6'3", 220-pound guy in Finley, in trade for Chase Berthollet and another player. I mean, I look at this trade not as a straight up, but I'm looking at this as a compliment to a bigger, badder, Cam Neely-esque player right down the middle that's going to help Connor Geekie and Matt Savoy in their run to the playoffs. What do you think of this deal? And do you think, again, like the other trade we talked about, both sides come out even?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, obviously both teams are getting what they like, and I agree with you on Finley. And I think, my stat shows him as 6'6". I'm not sure which is the correct amount, but he's a big dude. I know that. Drafted by the Tampa Bay Lightning, signed by the Lightning. So again, as a 2002, probably he's just going to play this year, and next year being, an overager, he'll probably play, in the American Hockey League or something like that. So again, he's a big piece. My sense from the outside was that Winnipeg, got a lot of talented forwards like Savoy, a little bit on the undersized, Zach Benson, super talented, but a little bit smaller. So, Connor Geekie can't do it all. And they got a couple other guys, Owen Peterson and some of those guys. But by adding Finley, I think that's a guy that really makes him a lot more tougher and stronger and harder on the puck up front. And, they've got a pretty solid D themselves. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still looking around maybe to add one piece on the back end. And I'm sure there's a lot of the other contending teams that we talked about, like, Everett. I throw Kamloops into that the mix. Even Vancouver. I mean, Vancouver knocked off both Everett and Kamloops on the weekend. And those are a couple of rare losses for both those teams. And I see, Vancouver made a trade for, what I would suspect is going to be a backup goalie. But it kind of tells me that they're maybe looking to go on a little bit of a run also.
We're going to see some more trades. Obviously, this is not the end of them by any means, Wayne. You and I both know that leading into probably after the World Juniors, we'll still see some heads move. But for a lot of these, top prospects, the group that's going to play, not just for Team Canada, but there are some Americans that would potentially go and some overseas that are all going to the World Juniors as well. They're going to be gone for like almost a month from their original teams. And, this is where we start seeing big, heavy horses move for contending Memorial Cup runs. So I look forward to seeing the rest of those moves in the coming month or so, because, I mean, it's rare to see a team trade somebody when they're at World Juniors, but you never know. It has happened before, right?
Yeah, and absolutely. And like I say, with this rare December Bantam draft, I mean, I think it's going to be a busy next couple of days with the USA draft tomorrow, the Bantam draft of the 2006s on Thursday. And, players leaving the World Junior, I think we're going to see a few moves even in the next couple of days.
Sounds good. Then, before we get any further, let's get into our hot takes here because we got 3 to go with, and look forward to chatting with you, Wayne, on the first one because we've seen some coaches move around, but we've also seen them become a little more expendable. When do we know? Is it them getting fired that we understand that they've outdone their shelf life, or are coaches just that much more expendable these days?
Gosh, it's kind of a combination, I think. But, coaches definitely are more expendable these days. It seems like teams don't have the patience. And, maybe it's because of that microwave society that we live in today where everybody's got to have it now type thing and stuff. You don't get the patience that you had in the old days. And, I think back to a guy I played for, Dwight McMillan. I think he still may be the winningest coach in junior A hockey. He went over 1,000 games. And so he coached in Weyburn for, years and years and years. And I just don't think you're going to see that anymore. And we've seen another long-term guy there, Doug Johnson of the Nipawin Hawks of the Saskatchewan Junior League, got released after I think it was just over 11 years and stuff like that. And, so I think it's going to be rare to see that long-term anymore and stuff. And part of it is I think some of the older style coaches haven't adapted to the new types of players that you can't scream and holler at or intimidate. And, the game also changes. So if you don't change, you go the way of the dinosaur and stuff. So it's a little bit of that. I think in the last pieces, you can't change your whole team. So if you want to change what's going on, probably the easiest piece to move is the coach.
I think the coach exactly has to become not expendable, but has to realize that he provides a culture. He is that top man. And, when that apex crumbles, that's when we see issues. And if he doesn't provide or breed a certain culture within an organization, they are the scapegoat, and rightfully so. That's part of their pressure that they take as someone, as a player, and also as someone that says, you know what, I'm the coach. I got to do that.
Yeah.
Good job
absolutely.
on the first one. Let's look at the second one. This one kind of is dear to our heart because it's right in the corner. We've talked about Connor Bedard in many ways, shapes, and forms, but his bubble play certainly excelled his current play. And do you think there are too many eyes on Connor Bedard and players of his stature in any league? And does it make sense for him to get an advancement or get a call to the World Junior program this year?
Yeah, well, high level, I think it doesn't help these kids when they get so much pressure on them and so many eyes on them and stuff, especially when he's as young as he is. And you can even see, I think he's recognized, and I think I've heard John Paddock, GM of the Pats, kind of say this. It's a different world from being in the hub and not having to travel to school, spend 6-7 hours on a bus, many nights in a week and still get to school in the morning and stuff. So it's a lot tougher grind. And then also when you're a known entity, nobody's going to give Connor Bedard any break. They know how good the kid is and stuff. But, that said, I just don't agree with him getting the World Junior invite. And, the reason I say that is, again, I'm a bit old school on this. It was primarily a 19-year-old tournament. So that's 2002s, and he's a 2005. And so, my rationale is, there's no better player born in 2002, 2003, or 2004 than in 2005. I find that hard to believe. And I can list you off first round draft pick players from the 2002 year that got bypassed, and many players that are blowing his numbers out. So I just don't understand it. It's almost like it's a publicity stunt. And, if I was one of those players that got overlooked, and, I can list off a lot of them from the Western Hockey League teams alone, let alone the Ontario Hockey League and the Quebec Major that, probably should have had an opportunity to show their wares.
I would like to see Connor Bedard mature. The Hub showed his great skill. We realize that this schedule is a little bit too hard for him, perhaps. There's too many eyes. We need to give him this opportunity to say, you know what, Connor, play hockey. Let's give you. We've given you far too much access to a lot of things, and we've given the media too much access to you as a player. And maybe we should give you a bit of a, hit the brakes a little bit and give you an opportunity to mature as a player. I know John Paddock would love to do that. Ex-Jets coach, WHLer for decades, would love to have this kid and groom this kid to being a better player all around, as opposed to pushing him into the elite status, pushing him in front of a camera even more so. We don't want this star to fizzle out before he even has a chance to be a superstar on the big screen. So let's see how that works out, because like you said, there's a lot of great players that have great seasons right now and are doing much better than what Connor Bedard is doing. Give them an opportunity for them to shine.
Agreed.
Last but not least, number 3, Wayne, we got to talk about this. Last year, the USHL was the league because it was the only one really functioning. But now with everything back, the CHL, all 3 leagues back, the NCAA is back in full effect. Does that push the USHL back, or does that give them just the opportunity to keep opportunities knocking below the radar?
Yeah, well, I think, they're still as prominent as ever. It's just that, they got a little bit more limelight last year when, Canadian Hockey League really wasn't playing. I mean, the OHL and they didn't even go at all. And the WHL didn't start until, I guess it would be February or something like that. So that gave them a lot of time to, have the main stage type thing. And, everybody, I think that even people hadn't even heard of the USHL started watching it a little bit because it was the only hockey around because the NHL wasn't going at that point in time. There was a few Western Hockey League players that went down there to play, none more so than Cole Sillinger, who, now is in the NHL with the Columbus Blue Jackets and doing quite well at that level. So pretty amazing story. So, I just think it was just something that happened due to COVID and, but they're still an extremely prominent league. And, but, the WHL and all them have caught up with them and getting their equal press.
I think the USHL still provides that extra portal opportunity for a lot of players in the United States, where we're still going to see that massive cluster for the next couple of years with regards to players aging out or not being given their freshman, junior, or freshman, sophomore years at Div 1 hockey. So that USHL is going to provide that opportunity for players to get on the ice more frequently, still show off their talent, and then potentially, should they enter a transfer portal, then they move to a different school that has that opportunity for them, they go and do that. But their ultimate goal is still the same as if they were playing Div 1 right now, and that is to make it to the NHL, get drafted, do their thing. And I think the league is still as strong as ever, if not getting stronger, because we are seeing it operate under the radar, but also with great talent. Wayne Kosior, I'd like to thank you very much. I know you're going to watch the next couple of days to see some names drop off the board, as well as to see how your son does this weekend, because I know that's a big deal for you and big traveled plans for you as such. So really appreciate the time, Wayne. Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Wayne's World.
Always a pleasure, Theo.
Very good. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back with our good friend Carson McConnell, who's with the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. He wears several hats. Well, hopefully we'll get him to put on one at a time as we go through the plethora of positions he holds, not only with the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, but as well with officiating in Hockey Manitoba and his social media presence. Stay tuned here on the ice as we return with Carson McConnell. Thank you for watching here on the ice. Part 2 with Carson McConnell, the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy social media manager. I got to take a breath because there's so many other things, Carson, that you do down in southern Manitoba. First and foremost, thanks for joining us here on the show. Appreciate your time. I know you do a lot of behind-the-scenes work with Pilot Mountain. Give us a sense of what you do for not just the U17 team being one of their assistant coaches, but for the remainder teams, keeping everything up to date for us.
Yeah, thanks, Theo, for having me on here today. I do all of the social media posts, so everything that you see on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as I help Glenn with kind of coordinating our amateur sports TV game film, I guess, the live broadcasts. And then I also update the Hockey Academy website, so pilotmountainhockeyacademy.com. So I'm doing all the stats, trying to line up all the stories that go on it from Gordy, the marketing manager, and then updating the schedule. I don't know if I said that already, but doing all that kind of stuff. It's pretty busy, but I enjoy it.
Got to ask you, Carson, because not only are you great with that aspect of it, but when you get to see all the game sheets and whatnot, does it help that you're an official? So you get to see all the chicken scratch that timekeepers have. You can put it all together. You can take all the stats and then correlate it to putting something online that I can read a lot easier.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. I often laugh because sometimes you see coincidental penalties and you're like, wonder what happened in that situation or what happened here and there. But no, it's actually neat to see how game sheet gets translated into a game.
So you've got not only now it's funny, it's not funny, but it's interesting because each of the three teams plays in CSSHL action, but a lot of them also have, we'll call it exhibition games or other showcases. For example, the U7 U18 female team recently played in a Hockey Manitoba showcase this weekend in Winnipeg. Those stats are often different than the CSSHL stats. So keeping everything organized in the right track has got to be, a bit of a skill for you, not just with one team, but all three teams.
Yeah, it's definitely a juggling match. With the sports school league, all the game sheets are moved to online format, so I don't actually get a paper copy anymore. Everything's in PDF and through the sports school league website. Then all the exhibition and tournament games, we usually try and get a game sheet. And then we go to the States and they have another different kind of online game sheet that they have. So it's through an iPad and that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a challenge trying to keep everyone on tack because you want to make sure you get them all because obviously stats are important to players and scouts are looking at them to see how things are going. And no, there's always a text from me Sunday night. I'm like, hey guys, did you grab the game sheets from the weekend? Because I kind of need them here starting next week.
Did you ever get a oops, I forgot one?
Oh yeah, all the time. But it's pretty easy now with technology to send a text or an email to whoever they played and they can scan her over, take a picture of it.
I guess with the scans and the PDFs that you receive, it's not in handwritten format anymore. It's something that's computer driven, so it's a lot easier to read.
Yep. Well, we still have some scribbles and scratches, and I'm like, I've had it more with the U15 team this year. I've texted Kyle, I'm like, can't read that one. You're gonna have to tell me who scored that goal.
That's crazy. That's funny. Now, you were this past weekend in Pilot Mountain, correct?
You betcha.
And were you coaching or officiating or doing both?
This weekend I was officiating. We had about 14 high-level games, so U15 and U18 games in the region. So I kind of got suckered into having to referee and lines the games this weekend rather than coaching.
Now, it's something you've been doing for several years now, Carson. When was the first time you started officiating hockey in Manitoba? Do you remember?
I was 12, so the first year that you're allowed to put on the skates and the ref jersey, and I just started with the younger ages. So you start with the U7 and the U9s, and now I'm gradually made my way up to the U18 AAA, and so doing the sports school league, and starting to line the Manitoba Junior League.
How have you been able to stay with it, Carson, after so many years and challenges you face wearing the stripes as opposed to being a player on the ice?
Yeah, it's not always easy. You are often getting yelled at, but it's the fact of if they don't have referees, you don't have a game. And from me playing since I was 3, 4, 5 years old, it's important to have those referees out there. I mean, I used to be the kid that used to yell at the referees all the time. I was that bad boy. Now I'm in the different shoes and I'm like, holy smokes, this game's totally different. Like I'm in control. I got to make sure the game is safe and played within the rules. And no, I don't look back. I enjoy it all the time.
No, I would never look. I mean, I remember when I was 12 and I remember doing the outdoor games here in River East area, and it was chilly. And I think back then, parents, fans, spectators might have been a little more positively discretion, we'll put it that way, thanking you for doing the duty that you do. But we are seeing a lot more officials, young, old, experienced, novice, getting into sports to help officiate the games for the right reasons, keeping a fair play, keeping a game safe within a certain rule, and making sure that both teams are playing fairly. But we're seeing a lot more negative connotations and negative reactions in every sport. Why do you think that is, Carson? And is that, directly related to the number of officials now involved being so minimal?
Yeah, and I definitely think with nowadays, social media is so negative, right? There are so many negative things that are going out there, but really there's a lot of positives. Like I'll give the Amy Martin example of the female referee who just did her first game in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. Like they promoted it, but it doesn't get blown up just like the bad incidents of referees getting yelled at, things like that. So no, I think media plays a huge toll in it. There is a lot of negatives that do go on with refereeing, but Hockey Canada has done a great job to implement the maltreatment rule that just came out this year, which is under Rule 11. So there's no disrespect, racism, racial, all that stuff is all thrown out the door. And if you do it, you will be suspended and will be punished, which I think is awesome. It's no longer.
Have you ever had to throw out a spectator, Carson?
I have. Did I want to? No, but it was just too far and we needed to get the game going.
Is that one of the things where you just stand at center ice with your arms crossed and I'm not dropping a puck until so-and-so is out of here?
Yeah, and we have a senior guy in Pembina Valley who always tells me, he goes, you know what? Just stand at center ice and keep giving them unsportsmanlike penalties, and they're eventually going to be quiet and carry on, because as soon as you get 6-8 minutes up on the board, they're going to realize, we're going to be killing for a long time here.
Absolutely. Carson, you said you head officiate the game. Do you find it better having two head officials on the ice as opposed to having the single? Are more eyes better than none?
Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. Obviously, with the sports school league, we use the one referee, two linesmen. And when you're reffing AAA U18 provincial, you have two refs, two linesmen. So going back and forth, I definitely find the two referee there's a lot more penalties called, right? All that behind the play stuff is getting called, which is eliminating all that stuff that shouldn't be going on, as in the one referee system where that stuff behind the play is kind of let go because they don't really see it, or they're not sure that's really worthy of a penalty. But I definitely think the two official system is definitely worth it because the game's played right in that way.
Do you find yourself with a infraction in front of you having to call it more versus having the back judge call it in front of you and say, hey, you missed one right in front of you. What's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. When you're in the one-man system, you're trying to fly up and down that ice because the game is so quick. Coaches are often like, oh, didn't you see that? And you're like, yeah, I seen it, but I'm also trying to watch the scrum that's going on over there and the guy that fell over there. And it's a tough job for sure.
Did you now put your linesman on, take the orange strands off and put the linesman jersey back on? How important is that relationship between linesmen and head officials, and also the coaching staffs and players, just to keep everything so that communication is always open and it's directed in a way to keep a game fair?
Oh, it's so important. Biggest thing nowadays in refereeing is communication, right? You often hear some of us that are really loud and kind of overdo it a little bit, and then you got some that are the quieter, but the communication is key. So I find it, I think it benefits me being a linesman and referee in all these leagues, because you can kind of kitty it off back and forth. So as a linesman, you see things that go on behind the play, but then when you go and turn into a referee, you can kind of watch that area because you know something's going to go on over there. So it just kind of goes back and forth to be able to watch all that. But no, now in Manitoba Junior League, they've come out with hybrid icing. So that throws a huge play into the game, because I think it's awesome, but it's definitely hard to call because you got to have that right decision right away.
Yeah, there's a lot of close calls. I remember watching a game with the Freeze in that matter, and there was kind of like, what did you make that call on? But again, discretion. It's all about safety with the players now too, more than ever. Let's keep the official hat on for one more question, Carson.
Sure.
Last weekend we had our Thanking the Stripes weekend in Hockey Manitoba. Is this the first year they've done this, or have they been doing this for several years? And if so, what is its benefits for just recognizing the thankless job that officials do in all sports?
Yeah, so I think I want to say it's almost our fourth year, because last year we didn't quite get it in because we were shut down with Hockey Canada. But yeah, Hockey Manitoba implemented it to show the importance of referees, right? So Sport Manitoba has come out with the no ref, no game quota here. And it's important for people to realize that, yeah, you're yelling at the referee. They make mistakes. We all make them, but they are human, right? Like, things do go on, and they're trying to do their best, right? No one goes out there to try and make a team lose. That's not what we're out there for. We're doing our best. We're trying to keep it safe. We're trying to let the kids have fun. But no, this is a great way to recognize the referees and be like, thank you. We appreciate what you do. We know it's not always easy, but we want you to continue. We want to see you out here next weekend. And we want you to continue and move up the ranks, because you usually start small, do the lower ages, and you'll make your way up if you're doing a good job.
Do you see yourself hopefully making the big show one day, Carson?
I hope to keep advancing. I enjoy it a lot. I keep learning. Every game I go out there, I learn something new, right? So I just got to do your best and see what happens.
Speaking of learning, you've entered the coaching realms a little bit as an assistant coach with the U17 program, correct?
Yeah. So I'm not on a list, but I do help out when I'm around. I don't go on the road or anything. I just help in practices and ice times.
So is it because your dad's coaching? Is that kind of the reason why? Or is it just something where it's like, hey, I'd like to explore this on my own?
Yeah, last year Hockey Canada or Hockey Manitoba came out with those online coaching clinics, and I'm like, you know what? I'm doing school online. I might as well just take these courses online and learn something while I'm at it. So I took my Coach 1 and my Coach 2, as well as my Development 1 course and the High Performance Body Checking course. So when I took all those, I'm interested in coaching. Just another thing to add to my toolbox, I guess. And I've also found that it does help with refereeing, because you now know different ways to approach coaches as well. So,
do you have an idea now, considering, okay, your dad's a coach, you're a coach, do you approach those coaches differently and say, okay, I got to have a little more calmer head about this, or I got to be more stern and direct with this guy, or does it help you out in those conversations?
Oh, yeah, big time. You kind of know what to say now. Like, you're like, okay, I know what they're questioning about, and I know what their answer they want. Sometimes you're going to give it, but sometimes you're not. Right, there's kind of a scenario there with discretion, but no, it definitely helps for sure.
Could you consider yourself like a puzzle guru, I guess, trying to find all the right things to say and the right things to do to make sure that all in all, everybody leaves the rink happy and feeling that, okay, that was a job well done by all parties?
Yeah, it's definitely a juggling match to make all the puzzles fit. I mean, usually you have one coach that just loves you, and then the other coach is just mad at you, right? It's just kind of the way the game goes, but you try and make it as fair as possible and just do your best.
Do you enjoy watching a certain coach behind the bench when you watch a game on TV?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Who's your favorite?
Everyone's hating Paul Maurice right now, but I've always liked him. He's usually pretty calm back there. Last night there? He wasn't so calm there against Toronto, but
yeah, him and Sheldon Keefe had a couple of nice words. I think they were sharing season's greetings comments behind the bench. Would you agree?
Yeah, something like that. Pretty friendly,
Yeah. Speaking of friendly, Bruce Boudreau in Vancouver is going to be back on the bandwagon there. Expect some kind remarks from him before the holidays are out?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be something. It's crazy how the coaching world works. They're always just shifting around.
It certainly is, absolutely. Carson, I want to thank you very much for everything you do, not just on the ice as an official, but as well behind the bench, working with the players and keeping everything in order so that when it comes to ASTV doing our shows and, giving our updates on certain players and teams, we kind of know what's going on. Like, we have an idea of who's scoring, who's not, who's sitting in the sin bin, finding out from coaches what actually happened in these games. It's great to see that we've got someone behind the scenes keeping it all organized for us. We really thank you for doing that, Carson.
Yeah, no problem.
Carson McConnell with the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, man of many hats. He's not wearing one today like I am, but we probably could find 3 different ones. I'm pretty sure he's got a Letterkenny hat too, probably. We probably have a visor or something like that for Shorzy, I'm sure, but we'll leave that conversation for another time. Right, Carson?
You betcha.
Thanks for joining us around the ice. Love to thank our sponsors, Dokes Bookfields, Case Financial Group, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, as well as Toby Hockey. We'll be back on Thursday night as always. Tuesdays and Thursdays here on ASTV. Thanks for watching, bringing more goodness to the greatness. Take care of yourselves and your neighbor. Have a good one and be good out there. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.